So hello and welcome to Let's Talk SEO. Content signals are one of the most important part of your on-page SEO process. And from on-page, it's also important. It's not only important for your on-page process, but also any process that you use to rank your website as a whole. And the warehouse APIs have showed us that not only is Google looking at a single page of content that's on your website, but it's also looking at your website as a whole. But because Google cannot index every part of your website and every word of content on your site, there are certain sections which are picked out and are looked at. And most people thought that this was random. And so Google would randomly extract entities and extract categories and then make sense of the content. But that's not really the case. Google's API algorithm, Google's leaked API, in other words, has showed us that there's a specific process that Google follows to evaluate and compare your web page to your website and your website to other websites to determine where it should rank in its SERPs. And so in this video, I'm going to go into the exact APIs that I found that are used by Google's algorithm to evaluate pages and to rank pages, and also rank the website as a whole. I'll also explain why certain signals are not necessarily something you should be worried about if you're not in that industry, and how to find out if you are in that industry. So before I go to the video, just want to say I offer SEO services. There's a link in the description that will take you to a Google form. Fill in the form and I'll get in touch with you. Alternatively, you can visit my website, cloudseodubai.com. Fill in the form and then I will get in touch with you. You can also buy my website audit services, my topical mapping service, and you can book a consultation directly via my website. Now that we have that out of the way, let's cut to my screen.
All right, so one of the things that every SEO talks about, and many of us probably get wrong, is trying to figure out what Google's on-page content signals are. Now, we have known for quite a while that semantic SEO has been a thing, and over the years, the concept of semantic SEO has kind of remained the same, and it's all about creating semantic relevance within documents. But when the Google API was leaked, or the warehouse API was leaked, a few things became more apparent. And what we assumed originally, we were vindicated. And so the SEOs that talked about various aspects of semantic SEO, like Bill Selvesky, and a lot of his work has been vindicated. Now, a lot of these APIs are not yet in their entirety. And so because they're not in their entirety, there are assumptions that are made based on existing knowledge and based on what's available from Google and Google's own patents. And so the first thing in the API is an entity. Now, entities in a document are, let's just say, things, right? So if you're new to semantic SEO, you wouldn't know the technical aspect of what an entity is. But let's say a thing is an entity. So a person can be an entity, the name New York City can be an entity, USA can be an entity. So let's just start with that. And so the assumption is that Google sees entities as the way we see entities. And then there's a semantic node. And semantic nodes for the document represent the arbitrary types of higher level abstraction beyond entity mention conference and binary relations between entities. And so let's say you had an entity called party. And party can mean many things, but within the context of a semantic node, it would be, let's say, the Green Party. All right, then you'll know that this is a political party. Let's say Children's Party, then you would know that this is a children's celebration, or maybe it's a birthday party. And so the context changes based on a semantic node. And so it's, in other words, it's the word before and after the entity that defines the meaning of that entity, or defines what that entity is about. The next thing is hyperlink. And this API, when Google looks at hyperlinks, it's sorting hyperlinks from left to right. And so we already discussed the technical aspects of hyperlinks when we discussed backlinks, but this is just one more addition to that, because when you're doing your content, just keep in mind is maybe the first hyperlink, which is on the extreme left of your document, will be read first, and the one that's on the right of your document will be read later on. So that will be hyperlink number 1. The next will be hyperlink number 2. And then we have the last significant update. Google is looking at and trying to determine when the page was last refreshed or updated. And I'll go into that a little bit later on. So Google is evaluating both entities and semantic nodes, which means the semantic nodes are semantically related to the document. So Google is evaluating how the document is being evaluated in relation to all the other documents on that page. Semantically and thematically, the content should be related, and that is important. Explain to the algorithm what that content is all about. And so when you're putting entities on your page, you shouldn't just blast all the entities onto that page. Make sure, that they make sense to someone who doesn't understand the human language, all right? So when you're using entities and you're hyperlinking them, just make sure that that is something you're bearing in mind. The next thing is outgoing and outbound links. And this is something that has got to do with its linking algorithm. So I've already addressed that Google handles outbound links, inbound links in a previous video, and this is a screenshot of that video. And this means that pages with relevant outbound links will rank better. And my testing, on the other hand, shows that relevance can be arbitrary. So what you may deem relevant to that page or your website, Google may not necessarily agree with that. Thus, the ranking boost most people seek may be elusive. So you may think that your outbound link to a Wikipedia page is highly relevant, when in fact, Google might not see it as that. And so this is something we do a lot of. We look at how and what document Google may be determining as the gold document or the gold standard of that document, which is something that I discuss later on in this video. And then we try to link to that document. That is why a lot of SEO is 80% just planning and 20% of it is execution, because before we can get to the 20% execution part, we have to do 80% of the planning part. And that is what takes a lot of time that's involved with doing SEO, and it's not really all the on-page and off-page stuff that we do. It's planning to do it. Next one is fresh content. Now, Google has previously said that freshness isn't a ranking factor. However, go and Google best VPN. It will become evident that that's not always the case. Also, content date matters when you're running a news site. And so if you have a news site, obviously, Google will want to rank the newest, the freshest news highest, because that is what people are looking for. So while the last significant update API may check the date when a page may have last been updated, the fact is that if it gives you a ranking boost, it's very industry dependent. And so not all industries will see a ranking boost just because they updated their content. And so adding a few words also isn't going to cut it. You will at least need to add around 200 words, or add 5% of what the whole body of the content is. So if you have 100 words on that page, then add 5 words to it. Or better yet, if you have 100 words on your page, add 200 words to it, because you want to add at least as much as 5%, but the more you can add, that's always better. So sorting topics by entities. So the first is the entity label. Entity labels used in this document. Then there's the topic. So there's topical categories are closely related to entities. Then you have gold. This is the gold standard that we're talking about. So it's a flag that indicates that the document is gold standard document. This means that a human reviewer, assumingly, will find and label a document or a gold document. So what we assume is that there's a human reviewer that would review a bunch of documents and label a document as a gold document. And that gold document will have an unfair advantage when it comes to ranking, but linking to it will also give you a bit of a ranking boost. So an outbound link to that gold document will give you a bit of a ranking boost. So then we have topical categories. These are closely related to entities. And so let's say you have a topic about parties. And one of those categories will be, let's say, political party. The other category will be a friend's party. So these two categories will be very different, even though they're both on the topic of parties. But Google will identify what topical party you're covering based on how those categories are set up. So you would have to identify how closely those topical categories are related within your website. And if that's done correctly within your document, that should help you rank better. For lexicon articles like Wikipedia pages, a document is often about a certain entity. So here Google is analyzing a document. They're trying to identify one with a main focus. This is sometimes referred to as the focus keyword or the main keyword or the primary keyword. And Google is looking for that on your document. And so if you have that on your document, it's a starting point for Google to try and understand what it's all about. The syndicate date, again, is the document's synthetic date. So if a date is in the URL, so let's say you're saying best VPN January 2024, Google would check to see if that date aligns with other dates within your document. And so it checks that association. If the association is not there, you would have a problem ranking, at least based on this API that we're seeing. I don't have relevant testing data for this, but it's something I will test. The next thing is privacy. So Google checks to see if the document has privacy-related information. So when a document has, let's say, an SSN, a phone number, personal address, that type of document is harder to rank because Google doesn't want that personal information to go out. So what does all of this mean? Well, Google is checking for pages for entities. So that's point number one. So you need to make sure that your page has all the relevant entities on it. Google comes onto a page, checks if there are relevant entities on the page. It then identifies the main entity, and then it wants to know how relevant it is by checking all the other entities on the page, and then how it's connected to other entities on their website. And thus, the main entity should be inserted into a titles page, the image, the H1, and within the content of the page. So there are a few other related APIs that I can't directly categorize, but one is original content. We're not sure what this means exactly, but we think that this means that this is what defines content that's not duplicate. So anything that's not duplicate is original content. But SSL certificate API, this mainly means that it's an SSL certificate that's not valid or is part of a redirect chain. Then we have registration information. This is the most recent creation and expiration of a domain. Rich snippet extracted from the content of a document. Usually this means Google has this in place because it wants to prevent PBNs from abusing the system. That's why I don't recommend using a domain you buy right away as a PBN. Give it some time, post some content on it, get things onto a good start before you use it as a PBN. Then we have the CSSE page rank cutoff. URL should only be selected using CSX if the page rank is higher than the CSSE page rank. So Google is assumingly based on the API stored within the document. So this is mainly what Google is doing here with the CSSE page rank cutoff is it's mapping out pages that are related to the document. It's then looking at how users are navigating the document and associated documents, and that helps Google map out user behavior to find similarities between how they use these documents so that it can improve search results. And so if you have good association within your documents, that essentially help Google ranks your site, but it also means that Google is figuring out how users interact with your site, and based on that, if the interaction is positive or expected, then your rank will improve over time. And so even though you might not see that initial boost in your rankings, putting all of this in place means that you will gradually your rankings will improve gradually.
So I hope you guys found this video useful. Like and subscribe, and Don't forget to visit cloudscodubai.com, and I will see you in the next video.